Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Struggle Vision Pineapples, and I'm here with my friend.
Crescent NovaSpec.
And we are here with the 5th episode of the HomeGrown podcast.
5th time's charm. We're around here with more special guests. And today's episode, we have 2 special guests, actually, a double dose. For this episode, we have 2 of Louisiana's original tournament organizers, GOL GuyInGreen and Jelly from Baton Rouge. GuyInGreen originates from New Orleans, and they are 2 of Louisiana's original tournament organizers for the scene. So welcome to the podcast, guys.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have anytime.
Awesome.
All right, so, guess to start y'all off, y'all could take a moment, say a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in the FGC, where you hail from. We know we just said where you were hosting from, but if that's not your scene of origin, where you're from. Rick, if we could start with you.
All right, for sure. I've been playing fighting games since as far back as I can remember. I used to have Fun Arcade down the street from where I used to live. So I would walk there and play Third Strike and Marvel 2 and stuff like that. But around 2011, I started playing fighting games on a more competitive level because I really wanted to play Mortal Kombat. So with the Mortal Kombat 9 or the re-release or whatever of the original Mortal Kombats, I used to go to this place called Dibs, which is a LAN center in the New Orleans metro area, and there they used to host events that were for fighting game people. You show up and you bring a console, and they had some monitors set up for you, and you could play, and it was really fun. And this guy that I'm still friends with, his name is Brian, used to host events there. And after a couple of weeks of hosting events there, I don't know what happened. He didn't want to do it anymore. He got busy, whatever. Life happened, I guess. And I was available. And so I just took over. And I was hosting these stuff myself. And that's how I got really heavily involved with the scene. It led to... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, and that's your tournament TO origin story. What initially got you started with the whole organization?
Yeah, right there. That's when I first started really getting into potentially running a bracket, stuff like that. That was all in 2011. I think right around then I made the Facebook group, the Louisiana Fighting Game Community Group, and that was a huge deal, I guess, because it blew up real fast and has
I think we're at 1,500 right now, total members.
Yeah,
not all of them are from Louisiana.
No, more and more people who join are straight up not from Louisiana. They're just random people who are
Namekians looking to fight.
Or advertise or anything like that, which is still really cool.
Right.
Yeah, we still have a central hub, but yeah, that's really cool. And now, Jelly, what's your origin stories for the tournament organizing scene?
So I broke into I didn't really play fighting games growing up much. I kind of had the worst systems each time. I had a 64 and a GameCube. You don't really play fighting games besides Bloody Roar, I guess.
Smash Brothers, man. You were the Smash player?
We don't need to talk about that. I really enjoyed... I remember, the first time I saw... I got linked to, a money match video from MVC2. And that was, during, the 08-ish era. But I got into the games probably around 2009, maybe early 10, when Marvel 3 first came out, Vanilla Marvel. And I was a competitor then. I didn't start doing TO stuff for a full-time thing until right before Slam 1. So before Slam 1, I decided to start doing my TO stuff because I was going to be a TO during that, and that's kind of how it started.
Excellent. So
your first event was Cove, right?
Yes, the Cove in Baton Rouge.
Right. Because I think that was the first. That wasn't the first tournament I ever went to. The first tournament I went to was actually Sword and Board
in Lafayette.
Yeah.
Oh, Curls, huh?
Yeah, Curls. that was my introduction.
Yeah, dude.
Curls
I love Curls,
is
man.
Look,
I love
Curls
him. I love him. I'm sorry.
Curls is a super nice guy every time I've ever hung out with him. But I think every event I've ever gone to, something has happened with the bracket, and I don't think it's always his fault.
It's not, dude.
It's
not. He's extraordinarily unlucky, and he's also usually pretty unprepared for like the worst things that happen to him, but the worst thing always does happen to him. But he's just always
Someone's running 20 minutes late. Please hold up the bracket an hour late so I can get there.
The GOL special, baby.
Yeah. Hey, it wasn't even GOL last time girls ran a tournament. It was Rasan. Rasan was late.
Rasan was GOL before.
Yeah, good old.
Well,
yeah,
yep.
I remember. I was there
You got
when
the privilege.
I was there when he quit GOL. Do you remember? Do you remember that?
No,
it was a
don't.
sword and board tournament, and he comes in, and no one from GOL would give him a ride. And
Yeah, that's what I was told. I was told that he quit because Bryden wouldn't give him a ride.
yeah, Brian said, "Boy, get your ass over here."
I brought him to plenty of coves, so I've given him plenty of rides. I don't even think he contacted me during that time. But anyway, that's story for later whenever we get into a little bit of the
We'll get
lore,
the GOL lore.
the Louisiana
Yeah.
lore. But yeah, within Louisiana, Louisiana, I believe, is still considered one of the only like grassroots scenes in the fighting game community. Still, we only recently, I think it was 3-4 years ago, had our first real major with Slam. And Jelly, can you tell us a little bit about Slam?
So Slam, it had been 5 years ago. So Slam it was me, it was myself, Sagan, who's now in Dallas, Master Steph, who's in Hammond, Van, who goes by many names, and Handsome Dan. We were at the Cove. I think it was in a summer cove. We were like, hey, do you think we could run a tournament like in a hotel better than Mississippi can? And
Was that a dig at Red September?
no, I mean like Mississippi did hotel tournaments, and we
Right.
never did that. You know, all of our tournaments were generally always at a venue, but we're like, how can we? Because the Cove and Dibs, there's always a limit to how many people you could have at it. So the idea was, what if we tried doing one of these? Because I mean, we had done some. Well, I hadn't done some rather, but there had been a major before Slam called Battle for the South, and that was attempted
Oh my god, R.I.P., dude.
during the nascent years of Street Fighter 4 for 3 years, and we wanted to see if we could carry on that and kind of have their lessons learned. But yeah, it was just like, can we do it, and how much money is it going to take to do? So we ended up actually talking to Mississippi. I forget the guy's name, but the one that ran most of the tournaments. We got all his spreadsheets. He's a white guy, shorter.
Maybe Jason Stewart?
That's it. Jason Stewart kind of gave us all like the Excel spreadsheets to be like, you need to have X, Y, and Z. This is how much cash you need to have the day of. And we just got it from him and ran. And we were going to have there's still possibility of Slam 2020 this year in August.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how things are looking with the coronavirus. But yeah, I mean, it's been a relative success. We've kind of stayed afloat, which has been nice.
Yeah, my first Slam was actually like the Slam, the first one. I think I know I made it to that one, was actually like extremely impressive. Like considering like it was the first run, it was surprisingly smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the because like I had only been to maybe 1 or 2 majors before that.
Mm-hmm.
My first major being Absolute Battle 7 with Sleepy. He was like, hey, you want to go for a trip? I was like, yeah. And so I met him in a parking lot in the middle of the night at like 4 a.m. and we drove to Texas with him and Rob and Zay.
Oh yeah, Rob.
Yeah, that was a trip.
Rob is his road dog. Like Rob has gone to more tournaments than I have. He hasn't really competed, but I always
Doesn't
see
compete.
Rob.
He's always there.
Dude, Rob's so fun. But and so when I was going to Slam, like I was really shocked to see that it was a lot easier to navigate than Absolute Battle 7, but it was still like just as engaging. And so that was really cool.
Yeah, that was the nice thing, was that at this time, Jarius, or Saken, rather,
Right.
he had been contracted out by Panda for a number of tournaments in the past to do work for him, and even
Right.
Evo at this time. Jarius had done work at Evo streaming. So Jarius kind of, a few of us have traveled, but Jarius had been paid to travel at this time. So he was able to kind of tell us, here's what I've witnessed being on the road behind the scenes. Because we all know what goes wrong at a tournament from a player's perspective, but
Right.
not everybody knows what actually went wrong on the tournament worker
Mechanically.
side. So that was really nice to have him there, and he had a lot more experience working tournaments than any of us, more or less.
Mm-hmm. And he's taken off and like essentially made his own career from organizing tournaments, the stream being the technical man behind everything, and now he's working at the
Dude's popping off at Esports Arena.
Esports Arena in Arlington. He's running all the big like Overwatch League big tournaments that the Esports Arena is holding, but everything's being on hold due to COVID. But yeah, Jelly, you have Slam under your belt, which was Louisiana's big forte into the major scene. Mm-hmm. And Rick, you have a tournament series that you're pretty proud of yourself too. One that like really, I believe, encapsulates what Louisiana's grassroots tradition and like what Louisiana really is, and that's the Grudge, correct?
Oh yeah. Yeah, okay. So the Grudge Tournament it's not a tournament. It is I don't know how to describe it. It's a
what, isn't it just like a money match?
It's a lifestyle.
It's not a tournament.
It's a lifestyle. No, I mean Pit Fight came second, man. Pit Fight is like Grudge, you know what I'm saying? Like but it's like an anthology of different money matches. It's a bunch of people just planning to money match a certain person over the period of like a month or two, and then getting together, and then over the course of like, 6 or so hours, we sit down and just all beat the shit out of each other and for money. And
right.
Yeah, there's tons of side betting. It's like a party. It's more like a party than it is like anything else. Yeah, go ahead.
I always called it the Louisiana's fighting game Thanksgiving. We all come together, we all drink too much, and we all bet too much money.
And then we even played Connect 4 at some points.
Yep. It's super fun.
Rock'em Sock'em Robots as well.
The first Grudge I ever did actually came about because this one dude who's now in GOL, he was in GOL, he got mad at Toy and I, and he left, and he was mad at us so much that he challenged us to a money match, and Injustice won. And yeah, no, this is real. And it blew up, and I was like, let's just do it at Dibs one day, let's do it on a Saturday, and like whoever else wants to have a money match too can like also contribute and like, write it down here on this Facebook event page, because if you do, I can potentially put it in the stream before we play. And then it blew up, and like we got like a whole day's worth of money matches out of it, and it was just insane. It was like the most people I've seen for the community get in one place at the time. Like this was way before Slam, I think.
Oh yeah.
And it was like the first time everybody got in the same room together, and it was really cool.
Yeah, and it was really cool seeing like every part of Louisiana and even parts of Mississippi come together, because basically Baton Rouge and New Orleans were our central hubs for tournaments for the longest time.
Yeah, so it was a good excuse for people from Shreveport to show up.
Yeah.
We did. We must have done. I think I've done 4, and the first one was called Grudge. The second one was called Son of Grudge.
Mm-hmm.
The third one was Mecha Grudge, and that one was like sci-fi themed, right? And
then, that was the one where you and Mecha Grudge money matched. I don't even remember who it was. I just know I won money off Rick.
Who's you?
So I bet on
Who's
that.
you?
Me, Axel NovaSpec.
Yeah.
That was the one where I fought J-Salt, correct? Or was that Son
I don't
of
know.
Grudge?
It was Mecha Grudge because I wanted to go, but I had to go to my now fiance's Halloween work party, and so like everyone's dancing to Thriller, and I'm in the corner watching you and J Salt go at it, getting really mad when you started throwing because I had money on that.
Who? I don't even remember who won.
Axel, yeah.
I won. I think the score was like 7-3.
Yeah, and I got like $15-20 off Rick. He paid too. Good man.
Well, hey man, Justin was like my homie or whatever.
Yeah. So for a more traditional tournament, I'm assuming
you
would.
I don't think that's right, Ian. I don't think I was the one who side bet on that.
I'm pretty sure you were, because I ran you down for it. I'll go find the post too.
No. If Axel was in GOL at the time, there's no way I would have bet against him.
This was pre-GOL.
That was me getting into GOL, Matt.
Oh, then I probably bet against him. Then it probably wasn't.
Because GOL had to bet for GOL, because I remember Brian, I was like, Brian, you're not going to vote for Axel? He was like, sorry, GOL blood, boy. So for a more traditional tournament, I'm assuming your baby would be the monthly Godlike, right?
Yeah, that was the monthly that I had in place. Man, I must have done that. I've done that for so long and so many different places. We did it at Dibs. We did it at this place called Ice, which is another computer cafe in the Metairie Metro Dibs area, whatever. I did it at a sushi restaurant
Yep.
called Little
That place was
Tokyo.
awesome. Oh, that place was awesome.
And I did it out of my own apartment. And yeah, I did it up until maybe 2018. 2011 to 2018. I did it every month. And yeah, it was really fun. At one point, like I've done it for so long that I've gotten really good at like fine tuning what I think makes a good event. You know what I mean? What makes a good monthly? And yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What would those be? Right? Like if you could expand on that.
Okay. So I can send you guys some pictures, right, of I'm going to talk about like our event design, right? Obviously, I think the best place to advertise this type of thing is Facebook. Personally, that's what I think. The best place to advertise it is Facebook. You can try to shoot for a Discord or maybe some sort of Instagram thing, but there's no real like community gathering.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
a Facebook.
originally at that time, Discord wasn't as popular as Facebook for the main hub for everybody to be like connected wise.
Yeah, and I mean, like even still, like like fighting game people are more eclectic than just people who use Discord. Like Facebook is a place where everyone goes no matter what. Like my mom has a Facebook. You know what I mean? Like if I try to get my mom to use Discord, there's no chance. There's no
don't even try. Teachers won't use Discord right now.
Yeah.
So
So there are
Shout out
people
to Zoom.
who are super old, and people who are just out of touch, and people who do this and do that, and people who are this way and this way, who use Facebook. 10 times out of 10, they're all using Facebook, and not so much with other platforms. So I personally think Facebook's the best way to garnish a group of people, to gather a group of people. You know what I'm saying? So once you get that going, you have a hub where you can just easily dump whatever you need to into. If they want to see it, they will see it. So I'll send you some pictures of my event banners, which I think are pretty funny. But I would do stuff like this. I'm going to reveal all my secrets, right? I would, personally, I'm familiar with my scene. I'm familiar with everyone from Baton Rouge. I'm familiar with everyone from New Orleans, everybody from Lafayette, everybody from Shreveport, whatever. But I'm also familiar with everyone who wants to play Street Fighter, everybody who wants to play Mortal Kombat, everybody who wants to play King of Fighters, BlazBlue, you name it. I know the people who want to play that game even before the game comes out. You know what I mean? Because they're all kind of the same, right? So, like, if I'm like, you know what? I think the Tekken community isn't doing well. I need to make sure I support the Tekken community. I need to advertise the Tekken community and try to get them to come out of the ground and, come to this event. So I started doing this, right? I would call the events Monthly Godlike, and then I would name it after a person who was in the scene. So, and at one time, Axel got featured. So, like, Monthly Godlike Axel. And it would be a big blown-up picture of his face used in the marketing. And we would take a repeatable pattern or, like, some sort of, eye-catching imagery, put it behind him, and we would use that pattern of his face, that picture. We would use it in the advertisement. We would use it in the streaming. So we would decorate our banners with his face, and we would try to cater the event to his liking, make him feel special. So yeah. Axel, if he were to show up to Monthly Godlike Axel, he would get in for free, and we would put in however much money was necessary for him to play one game of his choice, and we would host every game. That was one thing that that I think a lot of Louisiana locals like to do is we try to host every game, so because nobody wants to get left out. We host every game, right?
Right.
So like, I found fun in the high intensity of hosting every game and seeing if you can do 12 tournaments in one day. I like that, warfare style of running a bracket. So if I'm running, Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat 11 just came out and it's like popping, and like, obviously that game doesn't need the help. I don't need to make Monthly Godlike Mortal Kombat player. I don't need to do that. That doesn't need the help. But Tekken might. So I'll turn around and highlight a prominent figure in the Tekken community to get them to show up. So I'll do like Monthly Godlike, Poke Chop or whatever, whatever Tekken guys in your scene, right? And that would encourage him to show up, right? But when was the last time you drove to a tournament that's more than 30 minutes away from your house by yourself?
No, you just don't. Yeah, that's a
You
car.
don't do it. You don't do it. So you get with your boys, right? So if I highlight Poke Chop, he's going to come to his event. It's his event. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course you're going to go. Of course you're going to go, right? So he's going to show up, but he's not going to show up by himself. He's going to show up with his boys. Maybe his roommates play. They're all coming. You know what I mean?
Right. And if they're coming, they're going to bring their associates. And so by personalization, you help garner this exponential attraction.
Yeah, it's funny. It gives people that fuzzy feeling of being included and like selected and, you know, putting their face on the poster. Like it's fun, you know? And go ahead.
It also gives like a more personal feel to each tournament. It makes them very unique because it also like gets you not really like to know more, but it introduces you to different figureheads or different people within the scene. So like that's one of the things that was really good about hosting every game you could under the sun, because it brought together every community and kept the camaraderie up. We didn't just run a Street Fighter event on this day and then the Tekken event on that day, keeping the communities separated from each other. Every game was ran at the same time, so everybody who just played anime or just played Marvel or just played Street Fighter were all still under the same roof.
It's very true. It would also do something like, you know, okay, who's this person who's highlighted? Like, who is this guy? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm familiar with going to the monthly Godlikes, but I don't know who Axel is. You know what I mean? And now that kind of puts the flavor in your mouth, and that's a conversation starter when you get to the event. Oh, you're Axel. I recognize you from the poster. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
get a little bit of personality with each event, and even location was a big thing. Like with Jelly, whenever you hosted it at the Cove, right? All the original tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing. See, I have a little bit of different opinion than Rick. So I think that when it comes to tournaments, the biggest thing that I would shoot for is, can I run this efficiently as possible? Mostly because the problem I had was that I live in Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge, by default, for those that don't know, has a huge thing called LSU football. So LSU football happens on Saturdays, which means that the bar is not going to want fighting game players there. They're going to want people that generally fighting game players don't spend money. So that kind of defaulted us to having tournaments on Sundays. The only problem with a Sunday tournament is that almost everybody got work on Monday morning. So the thing I tried to shoot for, just due to the realities of where I had tournaments, was that I tried to shoot for, can I get you in and out in under, for the majority of the player base, in about 3.5 hours. 3.5 to 4 hours. Now, everybody stayed longer, but that was one of the first things that there were two players that came up to me when I took over the Cove tournaments from Van, was that Crucial B and another player named Mike Boy came up to me and said, hey, I want to challenge you to see if you can run a tournament on time, because generally Baton Rouge tournaments ran late. And if you try to commute from New Orleans or Lafayette or, God forbid, Monroe, you don't want to have to...
That was all an hour plus drive.
Right, so that's something that I always tried to shoot for with my tournaments, just because I didn't have the ability to run stuff on Saturdays.
Okay. Well, so with these differing ideologies, I kind of am excited for this next question because I expect different answers. So I'll start with you, Jelly, just because you just finished. Starting out as a TO, right, what do you feel was the hardest hurdle to overcome?
The hardest hurdle to overcome... Now, see, I've always... I'd say for most people, the hardest hurdle of being a TO is being willing to kind of... I'm trying to find the most delicate way to say this, but getting people to do things on time. And learning to accept that people are going to be late.
Being lenient with certain people,
right, because,
for whatever reason.
Because no matter how efficient I'd like to run things, no one is going to be... Not everybody shares your same idea of how you want to treat your hobby. You know, I like to treat it in this way. We all show up, so we all show up on time, so we're not wasting anybody's time. The other thing is being able to look at a bracket especially what I like to call the curse of Zito and Stefan, where people are good enough to where they go 2-2 or better in multiple games, and being able to kind of figure out how I'm going to call those matches, because from a tournament organizer standpoint, those people are always your bane, because they're just good enough to where I have to call you a bunch of times. Like, I don't mind the player that goes 0-2 in 4 games. He's only playing 8 games.
Just say my name. You don't have to dance around it.
No, you still managed to beat Ty in SF5 during your time down here, Ian. I remember that.
Mad about that.
Amazing.
I remember that. But
Amazing.
it's being able to, even if you want to be efficient, realizing other people aren't going to be efficient, and kind of being able to see the bracket in your head to figure out how to handle your multi-game players. That, and you got to be willing to kind of raise your voice a little bit and get people from kind of just goofing around and like just kind of having a 20-minute casual conversation, button check and playing.
Yeah. It was always, I remember every Little Wars Baton Rouge tournament that I was at, there was always oh no, he's playing Marvel. Oh, we got to run Grand Finals of Dragon Ball. No, I just called him for a Street Fighter match. Like, there was always that's such a big mesh of players with every game under the sun being there. That gives more people opportunities to go far in each of those games.
Right. So, Rick, thoughts and or if you have a differing opinion, what did you feel was your hardest hurdle?
Well, yeah, I think Jelly's right. I think that, I don't know if that's exactly my hardest hurdle, but it's definitely something that's going to happen. People are going to be late, and whether that be because they're just idiots or because, like, you know, like a plane landed on their house or whatever, like, if people are going to be late, dude. Like, for sure, people are always going to be late, and people will be late even if they're there already.
Yep.
Like, people...
Wait, what?
No,
for sure.
That's accurate.
It's hardcore, man. It's hardcore.
Sometimes you gotta go get supper because you didn't eat before coming to the tournament.
That is the most annoying thing.
Yep, Logan Murray.
That is the most annoying thing in the world.
Logan Murray would always get ice cream in the middle of the tournament. And I was just like, do I? Or there'd be other players. This happened more recently during the kind of end of
making Five Guys runs and shit.
No, it's not even Five Guys runs. It's going to the car and participating in activities. So I can't find you because you got these like darked out windows and you're in your car doing stuff. And I'm like, well, let me try contact him on Facebook, but he's probably a little too high to get on Facebook right now. Like,
I mean, dude, think about it like this, right? Think about it like this. Someone's up for a match, and maybe they have to play again because, you know, like, okay, think about it like this. Sometimes this will happen, right? Sometimes, like, let's say person 1 has to play a game, right? And he's like, hey, he plays his game, he's done. He's like, hey, man, do you mind if I, go to the bathroom? It's like, yeah, man, sure, whatever. I'm going to the bathroom. If you're looking for me, I'm in the bathroom. All right, well, then he goes to the bathroom, and he takes, like, an unusual amount of time in the bathroom, right? So, like, there's only a certain... I mean, I'm not even trying to be funny. Like, this is real shit. Yeah. This is definitely happening.
It's funny because I understand, like...
Yeah, so, like, then you're like, okay, well, I only have, a certain amount of setups. Let's say 4. It's like, well, 1 just opened, and I know for a fact that I could have used the guy who went to the bathroom to get to play because the guy that he has to play against has been waiting for a really long time. But the guy's not out of the bathroom yet. So what do? I have to put someone there to move the tournament along. You just hurry up and throw somebody there, whatever. Now you know that these 2 guys are your next priority call. The guy who was waiting for the other guy to get out of the bathroom goes, dude, where's what's-his-name? This is making me aggravated. I gotta go smoke a cigarette. You're like, shit, okay, man, can't tell him no, right? So then he goes to smoke a cigarette. Then another spot opens up, your guy comes out of the bathroom. Dude's still smoking a cigarette. You pop outside. Hey, man, you done smoking? You got a spot open. He goes, no, man, I just lit up. What do you want me to do? It's like, all right, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Turn around. That will happen. That happens every time. There's just stuff like that. It's minuscule, minor things that just over time, destroy you. And in my opinion,
how do you not lose your mind with that going on?
Oh, I have. I'm totally insane.
Yeah. That literally goes back to Jelly's philosophy of just like not everybody treats this hobby or passion, whatever the hell you want to call pushing buttons and playing fighting games. Not everybody treats it in the same light or with the same amount of priorities that other people do.
And the big thing is, I think that you have to give more leniency at a local for that because it's still a local. You know, local should be
That's
kind
right,
of
everybody's friends.
right,
Everybody's
right.
friends,
But
you know?
I mean, I remember Slam 1. I definitely called out across the room 3 times for Computer Bear Pineapples to actually play a match because you were off talking to Sleepy about something. And then I had to, and then I had to drag you by the arm. And to Rick's point, Slam 2, you know, so Slam 2, Slam 1 was a big success.
Slam 2, I definitely remember
Slam 2. Our hotel had a problem with the air conditioning went out, as well as KI players blew a circuit board. Many things happened. But, you know, I'm hosting these players from Mexico. 3 of them went to EVO Top 8 that year. And I remember the air conditioners broke for like the second time that day. And Oso has a recording of me. I just looked dejected, kind of like Charlie Brown or Michael Cera in Arrested Development. I walk in the hall, and I have my little clipboard. I got my pin behind my ear because I still had hair. And I'm looking at and I just look, and I slam it down, fall to the ground, and go, God damn it! I mean, everybody, like, like, tournament organizing. It's fun to do. Like, I enjoyed it when I was still doing it at a local level, and I still enjoy doing it for Slam once a year. But it's cathartic. It takes a lot out of you to run events, and especially like you know, Rick and I have talked after Rick's finished a Grudge, and Rick just looks like he's happy because everything happened, but I can tell that you're spent completely, physically, emotionally. You know, everything's spent.
Ready to die. Ready to die.
People think that like just TOing is just looking at a paper, looking at Smash GG and calling out matches, but there is so much more organizing, like planning ahead. As much as we've stated already, there's so much that goes into it.
Absolutely, absolutely. You guys asked Jelly a question earlier, and then you asked me my thoughts on it and my answer to it, and I gave my thoughts on the question, but I never answered it.
Oh no, go ahead.
If you want to swing back to it, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. What was the question again? I just want to recap.
It was what was your hardest hurdle?
Yeah. Okay. So, in my opinion, after dealing with a local environment for so long, everyone gets used to what you like and who you are, and what everybody else likes, and what everybody who everybody else is, and then it becomes, in a way, impossible to keep everyone happy. I think that's extremely difficult to have everyone be happy. Because like
especially running multiple games,
it's super hard. It's super hard. So like if I want to put the most popular game at the end of the night so that it has the most potential stream time, whatever, like that's gonna piss off. If it's not Street Fighter, all the Street Fighter, guys are gonna be butthurt for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like it's just small stuff like that where you post the event the first time and these guys who know who you are, who are your friend. Therefore, they don't have a filter when talking to you because they're your boys. You know what I mean? They're gonna immediately message you and be like, "Dude, what are you doing? You're why are you doing this?" And then you have to explain it to him. And then another guy messages you. You gotta explain it to them. And then you know what I mean? And it's like, it's literally you can't change anything because people will get mad. So it's just that's what I think. It's super difficult to appease everyone. I also get this. Let me ask you guys this. This is a question kind of back to you guys.
Okay.
Do you think that it is more and more difficult to keep people invested in a fighting game?
All right, so
because I feel like scenes die fast,
real
fast.
And this could be a slated view, but I mean, I've talked about this before. I think I might have talked about this on the podcast, but I was not originally an FGC player, but I'm not new to tournament scenes. I ran through AM Circuit and League back in my prime. I tried to go into Scouting League for LCS. I did Overwatch AM Circuit. Like, I've done competitive scenes. I've done LAN parties and whatnot. And I've always found that my LAN party turnouts, like especially for like League of Legends, Overwatch, CS, Counter-Strike, have always been really consistent. And the first thing that kind of struck me as weird when I joined the FGC was how hard it seemed to get people in the same room, right? And like, for as much trouble as I gave you guys TOing, I know I did because I'm scatterbrained. I had run my own brackets before, so I understood how hard it was to manage that. And that's why it always it's so profound that people who wanted to compete in this would be so difficult about showing up when they do show up, about managing time and trying to keep things running smoothly. And at first I just attributed it to just like, oh, well, it just seems like this game died, right? Like I always called it the NRS curse. because when I was in Louisiana, it always seemed like the NRS games just had a lower shelf life than the other games that are being played. I always saw people playing GG or Blaze Blue or Street Fighter. But with a wider view of the scene now, I just think it's an FGC thing. Like, there's so many moving parts.
Let me hit you with this, right? I think one of the reasons why... Well, first of all, the NRS games, they typically last 2 years and then a new one comes out. So the lifespan for those games are expected to be, in a way, shorter than that of Street Fighter. Which Street Fighter 5 came out, 20 years ago? I don't fucking know. But, you know what I mean? And, So there's that, okay? But there's also hardcore bias. If you're playing one game and you're good at it and that's your game, chances are the people in that scene that play that game do not like the other games.
I mean, that was an absolute thing with Street Fighter V. It essentially turned off people into converting to other games. Essentially, people who came from Street Fighter 4 into Street Fighter V, didn't like what they saw, and it was either deal with it or play something else.
Not just evolving from a game to its sequel, which is bound to have some people complain, whatever. But Street Fighter players tend to not enjoy Mortal Kombat.
It's borderline zealot elitism.
It's hardcore like that. And, to an even bigger extent, to an even wider extent, there's no way you're going to convince a 2D fighting game player to play Smash as well. That's super difficult to do. You know what I'm saying? And vice versa. It's hard to go grab the Melee guy and be like, hey, man, have you ever tried Marvel? You might like it. You know what I'm saying? It's difficult. You rarely see it.
Whenever you go back to talking about games shelf life and the longevity of them, that's something that I kind of miss about the 09 to pre-Street Fighter V era, because whenever I first got into the Louisiana fighting game scene is whenever Vanilla Street Fighter 4 came out, and essentially everybody was playing one of 3 games. It was either I'd say I put King of Fighters or Guilty Gear in the same league because both of them were played at I'd say the same rate. But Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and Street Fighter 4 were the main ran games for every Louisiana tournament for the longest time, and everybody who got together, there were still side tournaments, mystery games, old games or whatever, still being played, but everybody together collectively played Marvel or Street Fighter, and those games kept a huge community sense to Louisiana, and that's something that I really, really miss, because the more new games are coming out, the more you got Dragon Ball Z, you got Grand Blue, you got all these different anime games. There's 3 different NRS games. Tekken just got back up and getting on its feet to compete with everybody else. There's so many different other games that
the biggest game in the state right now is Tekken.
Yeah. Tekken is doing great across a lot of margins. Has only been going up.
But
to
get back to Rick's point, honestly, I think Axel said that, back when it was 09, these halcyon days for us, if you want to call it that, we all played these games. But I think the thing that's made it hard for scenes to stick is the fact that when Street Fighter 4 had just come out, it had been since 1999 since Street Fighter Third Strike had come out. So it
was the breaking.
So it had been 10 years, and we didn't expect new games to have such a release cycle. Now, I'm not well versed in the NRS stuff, but at least for Guilty Gear, Accent Core had come out, and Plus R took a while, and then Zerd came out a little while later. But we didn't have the constant turnovers of I'm expecting a sequel to come out. I don't think when MK9 came out, it had been or MK at the time, it had been a long time since a good competitive Mortal Kombat game had existed.
That's the first one.
I mean, some people will say UMK3, but we were all kids during that age. Who knows? But now with the fact that now people see that fighting games can sell, that we just expect these releases to come out to where instead of sometimes I had a grievance with SF4. I didn't really like the game to start, but I didn't know SF5 was going to come out, so I just kind of put my bootstraps on and said, well, let me figure out how I can make this game something that I like. Nowadays, when we're just expecting new things and new sequels and new releases to happen, it gives player an easy reason to jump ship. That, and I think one of the bigger things is that people seem to think now that, before, in the 09 era, before like the real Twitch was big, we're still watching stuff on Justin TV, all this kind of stuff, the idea of an esport thing didn't really exist. We just kind of played, I really wanted to get, I wanted to get good at Marvel, and then when KOF 13 came out, I wanted to get good at that game. But I wasn't, shooting to be sponsored by someone, because that didn't really exist. And now that these sponsors do exist, they don't really sponsor multi-game players. They pretty much sponsor your X game players.
You need results. You need results. That's what they're shooting for, and it's hard to make results when you're multi-gaming.
Yes.
That is the argument. That's the positive argument for why people don't. But even outside of the idea of having people play multi-games, there seems to be almost like a prejudice that exists. If you play one game, you become like an elitist and you look down on other games. I've seen that happen to almost everyone.
Yeah, but that stuff existed for a long time. Although I didn't really compete, my first experience with the Baton Rouge stuff as a whole was we had a good crew of Virtua Fighters players back in the VF4 era that all played at Louis, or all met up at Louis to then play later. I was 15, 16 at the time, but that same elitism was exhibited then. They were why would you play Street Fighter? Why would you play Third Strike? You can only move in 2 spaces. Look at what you can do here. Why would you play Tekken when you can just juggle? They always called Tekken a clown game because all you did was juggle. So I kind of believe that the elitism has always been there, and the sense of that I'm not gonna play this because I play this has been there. But everything, we get amplified a zillion % because of the existence of everybody now has an avenue of expression in Facebook and Twitter to where we can say our dumb thoughts that normally would just get said in a room and then wouldn't go any farther, or would be on a SRK or VFDC or Tekken Zaibatsu message board that is seen by 100 people.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but now everyone gets a megaphone.
The void got much bigger.
I fully agree with Rick, but that's I think it's the nature of human psychology, right? When people believe they're wrong, this kind of reptilian nature of the brain kicks in. And so when someone's got a favorite game and someone else has a favorite game that is entirely different, it for some reason it's just hard for people to process that 2 different people can have 2 different likes, and it's almost like it's taken personally. Well, how could he not like my game? Is there something wrong with my game? There can't be something wrong with my game. He must just be stupid, right? And it's only gotten worse with Twitter and Facebook and the ability to kind of surround yourself in these social circles where that.
I was going to say another contributing factor is definitely exclusive group chats.
Yeah, because it's almost like a magnetic rail cannon, right? Where you load in these dumb thoughts and it's just amplified through this lev track until it finally slips out 10 times the speed it was before. Because all these people have just bolstered this opinion. And so when someone comes in, it's hey, it's a really bad mindset. It was well, we've been thinking this for 8 months with no one telling us we're wrong. We can't be wrong. You must be stupid. It's just toxic. And it's not new to competitive gaming. And it's definitely not something unique to the FGC. But in a community where essentially games are subgenres, and then games that exist in those subgenres are subgenres, that splintering of communities really makes it hard to get a lot of steam. At least for me, foraying into TOing and trying to start my own casuals, I found that was my hardest hurdle, to kind of loop back to my own question, was that this idea of, well, this game's good and these games aren't, makes it very hard for me to cater to enough people to garner the attention that I need.
To get on Rick's point, I think that group chats are both good and bad. We've had success with that in the Tekken and Street Fighter communities because we got on the Street Fighter community about, I see y'all playing these games, start showing up again, and everybody kind of did. Same with Tekken. Tekken had a problem at Little Wars for a while where they wouldn't show, And then Van just kind of went in the group chat and said, "Hey, yeah, I know y'all care about your game. I know you love it. You got to tell me what you need from me. I can throw you a bone and we can make it happen." And then Tekken's had a resurgence where Tekken shows up by the droves to Little Wars, and very few of them actually live in the Baton Rouge area, which I'm always proud of, that they will show up and go Little Wars. I do think something that happened locally with group chats being a bad thing is that normally you wouldn't know who was going to a tournament beforehand. You would just kind of go because, like, well, I might as well go. It's a week. It's a weekend. I got nothing else to do. What I saw happen in other group chats, and this happened in Street Fighter 2, we had to call them out for it, was you would get the steamroll effect of, well, I would hear top player Y isn't going, so I'm not going to show. And then, well, those two guys aren't going, I'm going to go. I'm not going to go. And then all of a sudden, you went from having an easy, steady 10-man bracket to only 5 people showing up. And then that gets to 4 to 3 to 2. So I think that's one of the things there are some pros to the group chat, but like Rick said, there are some cons to it. And I think the big one is that it kind of makes the snowballing effects of people not showing up to events more rapid.
And that's something that's even kind of happened in the Texas scene as well. So, a much more like grand scheme of players. Unless everybody's going to one specific event, then no matter how big it is or where it's at, if the players aren't going to go and support, then eventually the TOs will just stop supporting the game.
Yeah, they'll stop supporting it. Rest in peace, Street Fighter 5 at Rushdown.
Yep. So, like, that's absolutely something that's an issue.
So I remember, and this is when we talked about prior, one other thing you mentioned that I thought was interesting, and I kind of wanted you to expand on it, was you felt net play also had a negative impact on turnout, casuals, locals, etc. Would you mind bringing a bit more light to that, Jelly?
I mean, and it's the thing of that, like, so just to start off, during these coronavirus times, I realized how much we need good net play, and how much we support developers that have it, that we should support now developers like NRS. I don't want to say.
Hey, speaking of net play, did you guys notice that Toy literally won Wednesday Night Fights yesterday?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Did he really?
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, he fucking won.
Running the Bison train.
Isn't that crazy?
But so this is something that I watched a video on. I think it was Pick of the Hut, maybe. But he talked about how there was a change in the scene with NRS from MK9 to MKX, where the net play had gotten much better, and then people decided, like, it wasn't so much a problem at tournament. People still want to get the practice. But I think it's having locally for us with other games to where people don't want to show up to locals because I can get net play. And net play is a good enough approximation now because it isn't like the Marvel 3 era of trying to play on PSN, and which was horrendous. We've evolved to where, yes, Street Fighter 5 can have its bad days since the Falk patch, which has been forever, but, like, it's still not bad. But for a tournament to survive, you have to have casuals that happen both at the tournament and at some point in between the tournaments that are happening. And I feel that net play sometimes people just won't show up because they're better off net playing, or they feel they're better off net playing. And what's happened in the anime community sometimes is people will be like, well, I'm not going to get good comp if I go to locals. If I go to a local casual session, I'm just going to sit here and net play. And it's like, well, you just kind of killed the scene, more or less, by doing that, So.
Right, you're the grindstone, so if you don't show up...
Right, how are we going to get better? How are we going to sharpen that? How are we going to sharpen our own knives if we don't have the grindstone, like you said? But that's kind of my feeling about net play. And I think, that's going to somewhat change after COVID, after all this stuff happens and we kind of get back to a more normalcy. But I was definitely seeing it at the casual... So Little Wars, or the Cove, had casual sessions both at the Cove and at other places. And if a game had decent net play, those players would stop showing. And it was like, you don't just come to casuals to play matches. You come to share tech. You come to chat. You come just to be friends. So that's kind of why I occasionally will feel that net play can kind of, especially if it's good, it can kind of hurt a local scene. But Right.
It's a double-edged sword in that regard.
You want it, but it sometimes hurts too.
Yeah.
And I absolutely saw that happen with the Louisiana scene in around like 2018, whenever turnouts for Street Fighter V were just diminishing to levels where we had to beg anime players to get an 8-man bracket for just so we can run an efficient tournament. and both the online effect of just, oh, I can just net play, and then Rick's like snowball effect of, oh, I'm not going, oh, this player's not going, so I might as well not show up, or oh, I'm on my way there, and then they just never show up or whatever. And the people who consistently want the scene to stay where it is constantly showed up and just didn't have any games to play, and just had to, like, every other game that had consistent turnouts, like Dragon Ball Z, Blaze Blue or Guilty Gear at the time, and then what was the third game? That Tekken. Yeah, Tekken. Those were the three games that essentially overshadowed Street Fighter as having the most consistent big person turnouts, and that was either because the scene was just diminishing, players had to leave the state, and just people just stopped consistently showing up. So both Rick and Jelly's arguments like kind of meshed together into what kind of happened in Louisiana in 2018.
I mean, that's when Van had to kind of come to Tekken and be like, hey, what are you doing? You know, I can tell you like this game, but like you have to, it does happen, but you kind of have to also fight it off at the pass too. I guess is the best way to put it. I mean, like, just because you see erosion happening doesn't mean you have to let it slip by, but you also have to notice that erosion is happening to begin with.
Right. You've got to be conscious of it
to
fix it, but you can't ignore it. So, I think this is the final big bullet on our list. I want to start with Rick this time. So, if you wouldn't mind, in your time as a TO, the best event or memory from event that you have, and then if you could parallel that with maybe the worst event, or like the event that flopped, or maybe just one moment from an event that really sat with you as something that you've never wanted to repeat, or a mistake you've learned from.
Sure. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with my worst. The worst event that I have thrown. Obviously, the worst event that I think anybody has ever thrown, like the one that sucks the most, like ultimately, it's just the ones that are the most forgettable. Like, you know, you show up, there's not that many people, like whatever, you do it, and you get it over with, it's over, and it's like really, that's really disheartening for me. Like, if there's barely enough people to do something, or you have to cancel an event because, you know, whoever didn't come and you didn't get enough people, I feel like that's the worst one. Like, I recently, never mind, I don't want to get into that. I was about to say, okay, I'll just get it over with. I recently hosted an event that was, this is like backfiring on what I said about highlighting a person, right? I recently held a tournament that highlighted a person that had gotten into a fight with some other people, and I didn't know that. So he showed up, but he had because it was his event, I had essentially alienated the people that didn't like him at the moment.
Oh no.
You see what I'm saying? So like that did backfire and blow up on me, but that was like a one-time thing. I did it for 10 years. You know what I mean? For a one-time thing. So that happened, and that was ultimately the event that disappointed me the most out of the past, you know, however long that I've done it. But I do have a shit story for you, like a story about a tournament that was just like a Wild West mayhem thing. I used to do events for Game Heads, which is like, I don't know how to describe it, this company
The Legend of Franks.
That I don't know a lot about it. They're very sweet people, and it was run by this dude named Derek, and Derek's last name is escaping me, but Derek just passed away recently, so rest in peace. It's kind of sad. It's very sad. Well, Derek would always have these really grandiose ideas, and I'm not exactly sure. He definitely didn't play any fighting games, because his ideas sometimes were like kind of out of the realm of like reality. Like they weren't very well thought out, and I'm not trying to put him down. He was trying to do something innovative, and you know,
They were grand but not grounded.
It could have potentially worked. I don't know. It's just, maybe sometimes things haven't been tried before for a reason. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So he wanted me to host an Injustice 2 tournament that was a hybrid.
I remember this.
Tournament.
What?
Yeah. And it had, I was like, I don't know, man. And he's like, dude, I'll put a huge pop bonus on it. I'm like, well, now I have to do it. So I did
Money
it.
talks.
And some guy I've never heard of, never met before, won our local online.
Who was it?
I don't remember. Some guy. I don't.
Your next
no idea.
Evo champion.
And it was just like, yeah, for real. No, it was miserable because you have people waiting in real life for someone to play online. So there's just an open setup right in front of them. You know what I mean? And it's like, what the hell? It was a nightmare. And we also did it. This was during the time where I was running events out of my own apartment.
So Rosebud?
It was at Rosebud. And yeah, no, it was a travesty. It was a huge train wreck. My best tournament story is a whopper, though. It's like amazing. It's the Grudge with Kulus.
Oh, God, I'm so glad. All right, because I've told this story to people and they don't believe me. No one believes me.
The floor is yours, Rick.
Okay, so it was, I want to say, it was Mecha Grudge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Mecha Grudge is this sci-fi themed event where a new tradition for Grudge is that we film an advertisement for it that's a joke. It's like a stupid thing, and it usually has a lot of in-jokes with our scenes and stuff like that. So it's like this really fun, really interesting, really zany event that highlights a lot of people's shortcomings with each other. You know what I mean? So, like, let's say Jelly and I are having a conversation about a tier list, and then all of a sudden he's like, I think your character is really high tier. And I'm like, wow, you're trying to upplay my character. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I'm going to prove it to you. I don't know. Money match me, whatever. And it blows up. It's like almost a focused animosity thing, right? So
Yeah.
It's brutal, man. We play. It's competition at the end of the day. It's one-on-one direct competition with each other, with a person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's always incidences where things get a little out of control. So one time, I don't know how to. I'm trying to get this out here. This is like very kind of an awkward story. I'm trying to do the backstory as concise as possible here. So a friend of mine named Kevin Butler had joined this little clan called
Duck Clan.
Yeah, they joined a clan called the Clan, and like as you can tell, it was like a. I don't want to say it was a joke in a mean way. Like, I'm not trying to put down the Clan, but it was a funny thing. It was more it was lighthearted. You know what I'm saying? They didn't take themselves too seriously. So, and Kevin's hysterical. You know what I mean? So Kevin's running around with the Clan, and he's pulling jokes out of his ass, and he's being funny and goofy. This is Mortal Kombat X time. And for whatever reason, he aggravated some people within the scene. Well, the next thing that I know, I was not included on this. I don't know literally how it happened. Like, I don't know where it came from or who did it, right? But this entity entered our group chat. Because it was before the time where there were admins of group chats and anyone could invite anyone to the group chat, right? So, all of a sudden there's this mysterious new person in the group chat, and its name was Kulus. I don't remember the last name. It didn't matter. Cool, Coolose, Kulus. And it was this picture of this naked mole rat human, right? It's stupid. It's so stupid, but it's awesome. Trust me, when you get there. And you can look this up. So this is. I ended up being like, I gotta know more about this. What the hell is it? So I put some of my brain power into it. The naked mole mask thing is from a sci-fi channel original show where groups of makeup artists design monsters for a competition, like a reality TV show, and or a game show, whatever. And I want to say the mole rat won an episode, and it's this. The profile picture was straight up the mole rat from the show. So
it was a mask.
Yeah, So this is like the first hole in the tapestry of this dude Kulus was playing a character that was a naked mole rat mutant that lived in one of the swamps under the interstate or some shit. You know what I mean? And he ate gnats and he wanted to kill Kevin and eat him or something stupid, and he would just show up and be extremely gross and extremely vague and just kind of, dude, it was very WWE. It was very wrestling.
Just stirring the pot, kind of.
Oh my god!
Really,
every time, all the time, right? So it was obvious that it was somebody within our scene, and we just didn't know who. And it was like that for I don't know how long it was. Like I want to say, I'm guessing 3 months, but it felt like a year where we were just trying to figure out who it was, and I would have to. The Kulus guy had picked on Kevin. Think about this from Kevin's perspective. Okay, this person who is keeping their identity a fucking secret is insulting him, belittling him in this game that he plays, making fun of his friend group. Just wild shit, man. And money matching him, challenging him to money, and not just any old money. It was $500, I think, right?
Oh yeah, that was the big money.
Yeah,
match.
it was the big one.
Yeah, it's for fucking $500. So that rattles my cage. I'd be freaked out too. You know what I'm saying? So Kevin's uncomfortable, but everyone in the scene was like, Kevin, you gotta do it.
You gotta fight this guy.
You gotta do it. You gotta do it. What could possibly happen? What the fuck is going to happen? You have to do it. And there was points in time where Kevin thought that he could potentially be playing this game against a guy who was unstable and could, murder him or whatever. He was definitely at one point in time very scared for his life, which is kind of dark, but we did it anyway. And dude, we the match happens, right? And I had to communicate with Kulus to set this up. Of course, the guy was going to have a grand entrance. You know what I mean? So I had to help him do a bunch of shit, and I never knew who it was. I communicated directly through a Facebook message with the direct account. And in order for me to message that account, because at this point in time, late in this span of Kulus's lifespan or whatever, it had become apparent that Kulus only logs on for X amount of time during the day, which means that whoever really it is would log out of their actual Facebook on their phone. You know what I mean? Log on to the real Kulus. So if he wasn't already on the real Kulus Facebook, he wouldn't get any notifications. So I had to, while I was communicating with Kulus, I had to come up with a way to get Kulus to answer his messages while also not figuring out who it was or revealing who it was. Because I wanted to keep it a secret. If I didn't want to figure it out. I tried my best not to figure it out. You know what I mean? So I would have to go through some hoops to message this guy. In the group chat, I'd have to change my profile picture to something, which would be a signal to whoever was Kulus to get on the Kulus account and check their messages. You know what I'm saying?
Like a Kulus signal, dude?
Yes,
Commissioner Gordon?
I swear to God, I did all that. Yes, I hit the bat signal. I did all that stuff, right? So, fast forward, the event's happening, okay? So I've spent so much time with this person, making sure that I was holding the money for both parties, making sure that I had, that Kulus wasn't going to show up on time at this time, not have any weapons or anything goofy like that, and I had to do all this extra stuff for this masked person to show up, right? I had to get, he asked me for theme music. I had to get a special MP3 playing, for this guy's entrance, all kinds of stupid shit. So, day of, Kulus shows up. It's hard to get footage of this, but I think some of it's online.
The Twitch got a little bit of it.
Yeah. So, Kulus shows up. He's wearing a raggedy cloak, and his skin tone's an awkward color, and he's wearing a fucking giant naked mole rat mask, which looks just like his fucking Facebook profile picture, which is astounding because, like I said earlier, this mask was made specifically for a fucking game show. There is no two versions of it. So, he must have got it custom made based off of that picture. It's bonkers, right? Which means he got a full latex. And it's not just like a mask you put over your face. This thing covered his whole goddamn head, right? So that's hundreds of dollars just spent on the mask alone. Okay? It was very well made. It was like a nice quality mask that looked like it was potentially glued to his head. So like, you know, that's hundreds of dollars that you're spending on wearing a costume to hundreds of dollars of money match that you're going to potentially lose. You know what I mean? It's fucking bonkers. So this guy shows up. He sits down to play Kevin. He's got a raggedy cloak on that's like falling apart. I have the cloak. Because when he goes to play, he takes the cloak off and throws it into the audience. And I just immediately beelined it, grabbed it, threw it in my backpack. It's mine, right? So he's got on a full work outfit. He's wearing a blue button-down shirt with a tie and like long khakis. And he's got long-ass fingernails, right? And a mole mask on that goes into his shirt that looks like it's skin tight on his head, right? So he sits down to play Kevin. Dude, poor Kevin got shit
by his own
rattled.
character.
I love Kevin.
10-3, 10-4.
Kevin's in GOL now too, so you know, love him to death. But yeah, man, I want to say it was 10-3. I want to say it was 10-3.
Yeah.
And,
Unbreakable Sub-Zero, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was definitely Sub-Zero. I couldn't tell you the variation. Definitely Sub-Zero. And Kevin was playing shit, I don't know. Whatever.
I think it was Kung Lao maybe, but go on.
Yeah. So, which would be a bad matchup if that were the case, I think. So, Kevin loses, right? And Kulus gets up out of his chair, and I have a camera on me. I'm chasing after him. I'm ready. You know, I don't know what's going on. I'm wearing this like full-on lab coat because I'm in character. It's a sci-fi event. You know what I mean? So I'm like wearing this stupid-ass lab coat, and I'm trying to chase this fucking guy in a mole rat. It's ridiculous. It's a fighting game tournament, and we're both in. You know what I mean? Like, what? What is this? So me and almost everyone else in the venue is trying to get this mole mask guy to take off his fucking mask. And he walks outside, and we're all following him, and he goes to the parking lot of Dibs, and he's standing next to this fence, and he's like, all right, I'm going to take off my mask. And he goes to, like, kind of do it, and then he pulls a literal smoke bomb out of his pocket. This is real. This sounds like some fake comic.
Yeah, no, it happened.
I was there.
Really
This is real.
This is real, and it was a blue smoke bomb. I know that it was blue, and I remember that it was blue because it stained the cement of Dibs for years. The stain's not there anymore, but it was there for years. And, man, the smoke bomb hits the ground. We don't see anything, right? You know, somebody walks past the smoke cloud. There's a hole in the fence. This dude jumped through the fence and sprinted through different parking lots, you know, at like 11
This is like,
p.m.,
9
midnight.
or 10 p.m.
Yeah, and books it all the way to a hidden car and gets out of there before anybody could figure out who it was. It was insane.
I'm so glad you corroborated that. No one believed me. That's so funny.
That was one of my like first big like what the fuck is this fighting game scene I got into like moments whenever I saw that happen at the Grudge. That was crazy.
The coolest part about it is that it's all totally personable, right? Like you could potentially go to like CEO and watch like Kenny Omega like put Daigo in a headlock or some dumb shit. You know what I mean? And like it'd be funny or whatever. But like you're never gonna go to another event where someone shows up and it's had this long of build up. It built up for months, and then you show up, and it's this huge narrative that's taking place directly around you, involving people that you are friends with. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's never gonna happen to you again. I don't know
all
if
around
I'm
the
ever gonna
same
be able to top
medium.
that. I don't know if I'm ever gonna be able to top that event. It's impossible. That was some.
There were other like Grudge matches throughout the night. I remember like I think Rock'em Sock'em Robots maybe happened that night.
The Kalus one stood out to me the hardest.
Yeah, but like there was just so many different like little lore matches and things that like went down in history in the Louisiana scene at Grudges and all those events. That's what made Louisiana so great. It was really personable.
I don't think any
could
other
pull that off. No.
Maybe ever. I don't know if that ever happening anywhere else. So, shout outs to Kevin Butler and Kulus, whoever you are. Thank you for making something that I'm never going to forget.
All right, Jelly.
I mean, you really
gotta
can't
follow
follow
that
up the Kaloo story. My favorite part was because Boba Buster finds me to be hilarious, I always end up in the Mortal Kombat group chats. So I wasn't in deep, but I remember like Kalus would tell Kevin like, I can delete your character from the game. I work for NRS. I can do all this stuff. Like all that stuff was just like so perfect. The fact that he had and the bigger thing that Rick kind of touched on, and then I'll get to my stuff, was that whoever beat Kevin Butler, whoever it may be, the fact that he did all that Sub-Zero stuff, he did some real, like, it was all high-class combos. He wasn't, like, just beating him with, like, basic stuff. He did that wearing prosthetic nails and, like, hands. Not a prosthetic hand, but, like, he was wearing, like, some weird hand gloves,
A mask.
And, like, gloves or something. Something
right,
to hide
and, like,
everything about him.
Real, like, if you ever tried to play games wearing gloves and playing a pad, that's really hard. Like, that was... Yeah, like, that was one of the hardest flexes of all time. Whoever that was. Even though the blue controller did show up another time. But, I digress. I won't say who I think it is. I've been on the hunt. I've been on the hunt for years. We'll never know. So, when it comes to tournaments, I guess I'll start off, the hardest tournament, or the worst tournament for me, is when something goes wrong that you just can't control, or somebody does something and it has an effect to where you didn't expect it to end up the way it did. And for me, while Slam 2 was a great event, for me that was my hardest and most trying tournament. Like there's some great moments from Slam 2 or Slam 2017, I guess. Yeah. So we're using the same venue as the year before, and the year before was great. Didn't have any problems. We get extra space this time. We have more people than usual, and like I said before, I have a strong connection to the SNK community, so I was able to get guys that had gotten Evo Top 8 before in KOF 13 to come play in our KOF 14 tournament. So I have them, they took a flight from Mexico to New Orleans, drove up here, the works. We're at this tournament, and normally you can control most things that go on with the venue. The one thing that you can never control is how shitty their wiring is. So at one point we have like about maybe 50% more people than the year before, and the air conditioners just go out. So I freak out. We get the people. We get it. They said they fixed it. It goes out again. We call them. Third time it goes out, I have my breakdown where I go, God damn it, and chunk my pad down. Well, the other part that just will forever sear in my mind is, bless his heart, Jared Ortego. That man, GOL Blitz, loves him some Killer Instinct. Him and the legend, he's only showed up to 2 slams. Drake Bork, the Battleborg, the Blob, the
Battleborg.
So they wanted to have a KI side tournament, and I was like, you know what? That's fine. We want you to have a side tournament. Great. And Jared, at the time, or I think he still is, a security solutions expert for like IT. So with those kind of people, you really expect them to understand, please do not daisy chain setups together. Please do not daisy chain surge protectors. So, we're playing, and I'm at the point now during the tournament where I'm just saying, I can't control the heat. I'm sweating buckets. I'm a deal with this. And then all of a sudden, everything on one half just goes dark. And I look around, and unbeknownst to me, Jared Ortego has like commandeered a floor plug and has like daisy chained on it, and is also streaming too. And I just look at him, and I'm like, "What the f are you doing?" Like, 'cause like I can clearly see that you are the problem. Like it's because like one of the big things. Yes.
Had a whole desktop plugged in.
Yeah, like a whole desktop in a 4-plug daisy chain. And it's just like, and like matches got interrupted, and I was just like, that was the biggest oof I've had for a tournament. Like, cause generally, it's easy to take things when like you call the wrong match, so you got to stop it, or players show up late, that happens. But things that are so completely out of your control, and then to expect someone who's a security expert to not daisy chain and do dumb stuff, that's what got me. My favorite tournament ever is, so I run a series called So You Think You Nice. Shout outs to Drunk Oso, another Dallas native, for giving me that name. So the origin of the tournament series started when Oso was really drunk at a Red September tournament, and he was trying to money match people by just walking into a room saying, "So you think you nice?" Anyway, it's a specialty tournament I run. It's a single game, slightly different format regardless. I'm thinking it was So You Think You Nice. It was So You Think You Nice 2, which was the first Street Fighter one. It was, and I made this with some of the people. I made this awesome intro screen. I made this, and then to top it off, Dan Mui makes the So You Think You Nice video in RPG Maker, and
yes,
oh yeah,
he made an actual fleshed out general RPG game with characters,
pictures,
everybody
so
from
good.
members of the Lafayette scene, Baton Rouge, people from the Louisiana scene as characters in the game, and you could actually. He might still have the download link where you can actually just play it. Logan Murray was the absolute most broken unit in the game because he did the math wrong on some move or something.
That was for Satan 5.
I remember that.
Satan 2, he just made the video for it. He made a
video. Where there's a secret layer.
Bryden was just like how I expect Bryden to be in a video game, brash but not always there. There was the other in joke of, I don't think you realized it, Axel, but whenever you appeared on the screen, Dan found an 8-bit arrangement of Justin Bieber songs. So, that tournament as a whole, because for that one, this was I had done a ranking system. This was like an invite-only tournament, and I had a grand prize of a stick that said you were Louisiana champion. And just seeing, that was the tournament that made me glad I do stuff that are smaller and focused, because to see how hard everybody fought for that tournament, because there was, you didn't have any pop monsters there. Everybody was a pretty good player generally. But that's probably my favorite tournament, is probably So You Think You Nice 2.
Shout outs to Big E Custom for that stick, man. All right. Well, that's all the time we have. Thank you both for coming out, sharing your stories, giving us the lore, and a little bit of insight into, the more functional part of tournament running. I'm Struggle Vision Pineapples.
I'm Crescent NovaSpec.
And thank you all for coming out to HomeGrown. We'll see you next month.